This is discussion number 4, the civil service. The term civil service refers to persons who work for the government but do not go through the confirmation process and are not uniform members of the United States military. Remember that the higher level government positions, the top 2 or 3 layers of the hierarchical authority, are required to be confirmed by the Senate after being appointed by the President. But the levels below that don't require presidential appointment and are hired and fired on what a normal hiring and firing basis as we know it in the regular private sector. Now, originally, the civil service was populated by people of the same political party as the president. See, when a president was elected, they replaced the entire civil service with members of their own political party. It was the spoils system. People essentially picked teams of who they wanted to win, a lot of times based a little bit on policy, but a lot of times based on who they thought would get them a job. So persons who supported the particular candidates expected jobs after their person was elected based on the idea of patronage. Well, this meant that people might have been really good at getting votes to come to vote for a particular president, but it didn't necessarily mean that they were very good at their job. And so there was a lot of corruption and stupidity going on in the government service because of this patronage idea. After the Civil War, it got to be a really big problem. So the Pendleton Act was passed in 1883, which made hiring and promotions for government jobs based on merit. In other words, you had to do your job well in order to even get the job and to be promoted in the job. It instituted the idea of civil service exams, that you had to pass the tests before you could get a job or before you can get a promotion. You had to pass tests. So every different government agency created tests so to determine and warrant whether people would be worthy of promotions or getting jobs. This went on all the way through most of the 1900s and until we get to the late 1970s with the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. This created the Office of Personnel Management that created individual tests for vast number of jobs throughout the various different government agencies. See, if you wanted to be a secretary and you went to the United States government saying, I want to be a secretary for the government, you might end up having to take 30 different tests to essentially do the same job with the different agencies. Well, here, they created the Office of Personnel Management that you would take one test, they would take your qualifications, and then when the Department of Agriculture or the Department of Labor or the Department of Veterans Affairs say, we need a secretary, the Office of Personnel Management would go to their forms and say, okay, what are your requirements? And they see which one matches up closely and say, okay, we'll hire that person. They would hire new employees, train new employees. They set pay scales so that secretaries doing the same level of job would be paid no matter what level, no matter which agency they were in. Janitorial services, any general services. They also worked on job classification so that everyone knew exactly what they're supposed to do. And so the Office of Personnel Management does take care of a lot of the hiring and hirings for the government agencies as they became the central kind of clearinghouse of where all this information was. The most important ideas of the Pendleton Act and the Civil Service Reform Act is that they removed the politics from the civil service and they were getting competent people who could do a good job instead of people who just knew who weren't just in favor of a particular political party of job seekers. This concludes discussion number 4, the civil service. It also concludes the Chapter 14 and 15 discussions on presidential power and the bureaucracies.